To this Mondays at Murdoch webinar that's been brought to you by Murdoch University, Dubai. Hello, I'm Manuja. I am the manager for branding and communication here at our Dubai campus. And with us today, we have Keary and Keary Shandler, whom I'll speak just a little bit about before we dive into, I guess, what you all are here today for. So Keary's had a career that's obviously started a few years back, or I wouldn't say a long, long time ago, Keary, don't worry, that originated in New Zealand in the hospitality industry. And since then, Keary's held a lot of prominent international sales and marketing roles in financial services, publishing, brand licensing, corporate education, all throughout the US, Canada, Australia, and she's been based in UAE since 2002. Apart from very skillfully heading our undergraduate business program, Keary is also a Murdoch Dubai alumna, and she's completed her MBA with us, and she adds that value and knowledge and expertise to our postgraduate program as well. Keary's also very passionately led us to follow the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And very recently, she's spearheading our employability initiative here at Murdoch University, Dubai. And she's heading what we call HDXP, which is our employability focused platform that we have and we are developing here at Murdoch Dubai. So thank you, Keary, for joining us today. And if I can maybe introduce or set the scene for what you'll be sharing, and I'm guessing why everyone has joined us is it feels like it's been almost 6 months in, and everyone knows it and acknowledges it, that the pandemic has brought a lot of disruption in our lives, personally and professionally. Today, I think we're just going to focus on professionally what we can learn a little bit more about what the future holds for our jobs, our professions, and more importantly, what are the skills that we might already have but need to focus on, or if not, develop to just make sure we not only survive but thrive well during and after this pandemic. So there, I'm sure, is not one silver bullet that we can all tackle, or there's not one answer across industries, but from her expertise in the research and everything that Keary does know, I think we'll just be better equipped to be professionally well armed to make sure that we are relevant and making the most out of this pandemic to just make sure that we are relevant and we are successful in whatever that we do. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to the one that holds the oracle. Keary, over to you.
Thanks, Manuja. Hello, everyone. Really nice of you to spend the time to join us and to have a conversation about this enormous subject, of which I cannot claim to have any crystal ball. But I hope some of the perhaps observations and ideas that I'm going to present and talk to you about resonate with you, whether you're in a capacity of business or an educator or indeed a student. I think that the conversation is really important to have on an ongoing basis about what's really important for us in education and in industry, of which we always want to work closely with. And so Manuja gave you a very nice introduction about my background, and that's pretty complete, actually. I'm a very visual person. And so when I was looking for images to start off my presentation today, I found a lot of dystopian images about the truth or the future of jobs, a lot of them with robots and automation and lots of technology. And I wanted to at least start on a positive note in terms of optimism and hope, and to give us all some positivity to think about in terms of what we need to nurture in our own environments. So welcome, and I hope to have some conversation during this time and also afterwards. This would be really the purpose of these events that we host, is really to really nurture ongoing conversations. So I don't need to spend too much time on this slide, but visually it gives you an opportunity to see where I've come from, and you'll note that all three of those cities are by the ocean. So there's certainly something in that. New Zealand was certainly not a bad place to grow up. My hearts are still in Vancouver and Auckland, but as Manuja said, I have been a resident here since 2002. So that makes me almost as much a resident of the UAE as it has been in the other countries that I've lived and worked. So I probably am very similar to many of you in terms of being this global citizen. You know, we come to Dubai with lots of aspirations or for work and different job opportunities. And that's certainly what brought me here. And then I guess this really is quite relevant in terms of what we're talking about today, because I've had such a variety of careers, and the transferability of what I've started and progressed through and where I am today is still very, very relevant, and something that I wanted to talk about, because from my own experience as an educator now, I bring sort of these ideas and observations to you also as being as a business owner, as a manager, a CEO, a COO, an entrepreneur. You know, all these different titles and roles have given me sort of these thoughts that I wanted to share with you today. But let's start off with a few facts, because there's plenty out there for us to absorb. One of the ones that's really relevant that I wanted to tie to my own experience and story is that if we think about today's 15-year-olds, they will likely navigate their way through at least 17 different employers and change their own career 5 different times. Now, when I think about my career, I probably made at least those number of changes. But I think that also stems from my foundation in hospitality and tourism, which is traditionally known for moving people around and giving you access to lots of different places to work. But across all sorts of professions now, this is going to be the norm. And maybe this is something that you've even observed with your own career. Central to this success and being able to support students to go through these changes is really trying to equip them to be not only job builders, but job creators. And that comes from also procuring entrepreneurial mindsets and thinking and skills. So we know that the UAE in particular is a great place for job creation because of the interest in entrepreneurial skills. And that's a big source of possibility and positivity for the UAE in particular. And we are known for being innovative and self-starters, and you know, the number of startups in this region is incredible. So we have that mindset and we have that ambition. And I can see it across even our students that many of them want to be their own bosses, much more than in comparison with their same cohorts in our campus in Perth and in Singapore. There's a lot more of our students that have the idea straight after graduation that they want to open up their own business. So those being in demand are the skills that we need to try and help them with, what's going to give them that good start to their early career. So a few more facts, let's look at them. The trends, 70% of the future jobs are going to demand these enterprise skills. Enterprise skills are what many of us know as 21st century skills. Soft skills is the even earlier version of that. That is a trend that's going to grow and expand. It's not something that's going to diminish. So whilst as learning education institutions, we of course teach academic achievements and degrees and certifications, there are many other skills and values which students need to have that advantage when looking for employment. Those are an integral part of their early career success. Things like communication, leadership, presentation, communication skills. These are just a few of the ones that you would see in regular job advertisements. These are the ones that employers are telling us that they need to see demonstrations of in students. And that's the hard part. For students and new graduates, it's really difficult to demonstrate these skills. So employability skills are just as much about these types of enterprise skills as they are about the academic side of things. So let's have a kind of a debate about maybe what this hard skills versus soft skills is and what is more important. There's really nothing new about this conversation because we've known about soft skills for quite some time and we have placed some importance on them. So we have ongoing dialogue about which are more important, but what is changing and rapidly changing is the balance of these skills, is the prominence of hard skills in the past as being more valued. What we are seeing and what we are hearing from industry is that they are more interested in the soft skills, which is very interesting for an academic institution. So what is it that we can do to help embed these skills and to develop them and for them to acquire them in synergy with these other basic fundamental skills that they must also have? It is not in any way diminishing those skills and the importance of them, but what is being told to us and what research shows that these soft skills are also tilting the scales. They are not any longer less valued. They are just as much valuable, especially in early career. And what do we see out there in the market? Almost in competition to universities are platforms we call MOOCs, so massive open courses like Coursera, who offer fantastic ranges of opportunities, courses of different lengths that you can quickly upskill. You can even get a degree through things like Coursera. And certifications to quickly get up to speed with the latest version of something, or to apply for a job in particular where you're absent of that skill. You can quickly do something on a Coursera or like, and say that you've done that and demonstrate it. And that quick iteration is becoming more and more prevalent and more common and accepted. And that also shows us that people are starting to realize that they don't stop learning when they finish their more professional certifications like their degrees. That the mindset is slowly seeping in that lifelong learning is actually the new normal. And this would be the same for all of us, whether we are just newly graduating or whether we are in the latter stages of our career. There is always a need to upskill and to keep learning. This is something that I think is a harder sell for students who are currently doing their degree, to tell them that they're never going to be finished. But I guess it's all the way that you sell that. In the UAE, when I started looking at industry and what we are screaming for here, it was really interesting to see Hayes come out earlier this year and say 75% of employers anticipate a skills shortage this year. Now, admittedly, that was pre-COVID in January, but I would say that most of that still rings true, because they are anticipating that leadership is taking up a quarter of their skill shortages. Leadership. So how is leadership, developed in university? How are leaderships developed in private industry? 11% of them anticipated a shortage of IT and tech skills, which really surprised me, because we think of young people being born with smartphones in their hand and that digital literacy is very high. In fact, we know the pluses and minuses of the digital world, and it certainly has its enormous benefits for us, but there's some really big risks and some factors there that are creeping into the whole evaluation of the digital landscape. Certainly, we know that it's not going away, and that these technology skills and digital skills are going to just increasingly become in demand. And that's supported by bodies like the World Economic Forum. Every year they come out with a range of different reports for us to look at. This one, admittedly, is from 2018, but their outlook for 2022 is still relevant. And I would ask you just to also have a quick look at the growing number of skills. In the top 3, there are no technical skills there in terms of growth. And if you looked to the declining skills, you can see a lot more frequency of technical skills there. So again, we can see evidence of these growing skills that are needed, really hard to demonstrate and often intangible. The World Economic Forum is a really interesting platform if you ever want to explore it. It's just an abundance of information. In terms of professional clusters and the workforce of the future, this again were 7 different professional clusters that they identified. Now, collectively, these clusters are going to generate over 6 million jobs in the next 3 years. Now, 3 years is a really short time frame, and some of our timeframes lately have been pretty hard to predict. But you can see, and some of these will look pretty obvious to you in terms of where the professional clusters are culminating. Data and AI are certainly no surprise, are they? Even things like engineering and cloud computing, product development, thank goodness, sales and marketing and content are still there. But we've got this care economy and this green economy. And when I dug a little deeper, actually a lot of that was still very technical. Care would encompass things like nursing, AI simulations for health detection, early health detection things. Care economy can also be things like fitness instructors, which we know the health industry and the fitness industry and the well-being industry are all very much on the rise. And I'm sure not the least of which has encouraged that has been our latest challenges with COVID and the recognition of not only physical well-being, but the importance of mental well-being with our workforce. And that's very evident in our student body as well. It's been something that we've had to really focus on in terms of supporting students during times when they're not able to come to campus and learn. And this has certainly been a transition for us and them. It's given us lots of fantastic opportunities, but the social connections and the mental well-being are again things that we maybe didn't place as much importance on, but they are important. They are vital to the productivity of a workforce. The green economy, certainly something I'm passionate and interested in on a personal and professional level, is also technically driven, things like engineering and solar, renewables, and lots of science in there. But also, interestingly, that the marketing of green storytelling and the social side of that is coming up as professional clusters which are growing. So these are just some facts to absorb. All of these clusters that they identified stretch across these domains, this business, technology, and data science. So what does this all mean? This means that I tell students, look, do not worry about choosing business and not being sure about what you're going to do exactly. What this tells me is that lots of skills and competencies are transferable across many different industries. I used my own story as a good example, but to make it relevant, this supports that idea that if you choose business, that if you choose technology, that if you choose science, those different domains can transfer across many, many different opportunities. They give students now flexibility, lots of options. So the pressure of choosing the right degree or choosing the right path is enormous for students and parents. But what we need to recognize also, look, whatever you're learning is not going to be wasted by any means, based on how we know how the long length of time that we are going to continue to learn and upskill and get recertified, and the ability to do so and the accessibility to do so. So these are all positive things. When we talk about enterprise skills and we specifically listen to employers, this is what they tell us. They tell us the growth in these types of enterprise skills. And it's not, I guess, a surprise that digital literacy is at the top there, that between 2012, 2015, this skill grew that much. Close behind is this elusive skill called critical thinking, which I'll talk more about later. But look how it comes in close proximity to demanding of digital literacy. And then going down the scale, we see things like creativity and problem solving, presentation, and so forth. All of those skills are interlinked. This makes a really strong argument for why our work is so important here in university in terms of developing these types of skills. Because research and reality tells us that it takes far more than just a degree to get ahead. It's not enough. You need to be able to demonstrate some of these other skills, and you need to be having an open mindset about continual development in these skills. In light of our current economic situation, I think these skills become even more in the spotlight in terms of being needed, especially digital literacy. We've all had to upskill in many, many different types of software and technical tools and platforms just in order to communicate effectively, to collaborate, to keep up our productivity, to sometimes to the detriment of our health and energy and well-being, to be able to really embrace a lot of digital tools to perform our jobs. So this is something I'm sure that resonates with you as well. We still have this sort of scary mantra out there. I saw a lot of this in terms of headlines when I was doing some research for today. Your job is going to be taken over by a robot. Automation will eliminate your job. AI, machine learning, all of these things. We've always had these types of cycles. Building a successful career in the past always required technical skills for an occupation. And then gradually we've had to broaden the skill sets that are required in terms of much broader than technical skills. We used to think that working hard only was the recipe for success. We know that today that is not necessarily a good approach. Today we have the external forces of automation, we have globalization. These are all giving us such a compelling narrative about the future of work and where careers are going to go. It's becoming more and more complicated, isn't it, to even map out careers and job titles. You'll find lots in the media about robots coming to take your jobs. And I would say if you're a parent, don't be scared by that for your children, because we are always going to have the need for humans to be able to engage with tools and to do the humanistic types of things. These were some of the future jobs that I found that aren't probably so sci-fi as you think. A carbon farmer, an AI-assisted healthcare technician, an avatar designer. I was trying to even imagine what some of these roles would do. And when you dig down, a lot of them are technical and obviously are fueled by the advancement of technology. But a lot of them also require these skills that I've been talking about so far. And this comes back down to humans will always be needed. AI, robots, machines, all these are going to be definitely unstoppable. Doesn't mean that humans not need apply for roles, because machines are tools and tools to be used by people. Always remember that. So now I've talked about these technical things. I've given you a bit of data. I've hopefully given you some reassurance about the figures that are out there from all those different sources. I want to kind of be a bit controversial now. This comes again from my experience and observations, being in business and being in education. And all these things that I'm going to talk about in terms of what I deem to be very important skills for us to try and embed and develop and nurture are pretty hard sell. They're a hard sell and they're hard to get across the line, but I think they're definitely worth trying. I'm going to suggest and make a bold suggestions that we need to focus on skills that make us better humans. What does that mean? That's a pretty idealistic thing to say, isn't it? No, I'm not running for office. What I'm trying to promote is interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, which you probably have heard about. What is that? It's things like empathy, it's things like cooperation, social awareness, the ability to negotiate, the ability to listen. Now, you might be thinking, well, those are really nice, but are they really important? Well, let's run through some of the value of those and how they show up. The first skill I would promote is reflection. Now, this is the softest one out of all of them I'm going to present to you, so bear with me. It's not soft and fuzzy. It's actually a really smart skill to perfect. Why? Employers tell us that this is a skill that they really value. What is reflection? Reflection sits actually at the center of employability. Learning itself only happens when you come to reflect on what has happened. You can go through a process, you can feel the process, but not until you sit and reflect and look back and think about it do you actually learn. That is where the learning occurs. That's why for many of our curriculum assessments, we have assignments and tasks that really try and get the student to sit and think. And that's maybe being very simplistic in what we're trying to do, but it's very hard to get anyone to sit and think. This art of reflection actually is something very hard to teach. We're living in such a turbulent world. Turbulence is our new normal. This actually requires you to also be comfortable with getting to know yourself, having self-awareness, having social awareness. Now, for many of us that are adults, we don't even have these skills. How do we teach them to students? Reflection can come in many different forms. You can talk about it in the dimension of mindfulness or even meditation, the practice of meditation. But essentially reflection as a business person or as a manager or as a leader, reflection is going to be extremely useful for trying to make sense of what's happened, not being able to predict the future, but trying to use that experience and use it skillfully and productively and put it to real value. And that process only happens when you sit and reflect. This reflection skill ties closely into the ability to be creative and to have creativity. So these are different sides of the same box. When we think of creativity, are we thinking about artists, musicians, people that are naturally talented in these areas? No, creativity is actually being optimistic. It's having an optimistic mindset. It actually is a muscle that you want to strengthen. Like anything where we want to get stronger or better at, we have to practice it. We have to use it. So again, creativity is something that we highly promote because research is showing that optimistic mindsets actually accelerate successful entry into workforce environments. For students, that's really important to show their creativity. To demonstrate this and the importance of creativity, I wanted to give you this story about Dr. Fabiola Gianotti. Now, she is the first female director of the European Organization for Nuclear Research, or widely known as CERN. This is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. It's deep underground, just outside of Geneva. This woman, who's now close to 60, I think she has fantastic Italian genes. That's why she looks so young. She started wanting to be a ballerina, a dancer, and then she got a piano degree. She did a Bachelor of Arts. Then she went on and did physics for her PhD in Milan. She says she would never have been such a good scientist without that background in arts. That background in arts gave her the ability to be creative with her problem solving, to think of things in different dimensions. And so you can see again the interconnectivity of all of these skills and how they feed into each other and how they're so important and relevant. Problem solving, of course, is again one of these key skills I want to suggest that is really important. Why? Because if you have a problem solving type of mentality and a mindset, then you are naturally a challenger. You challenge things, you like challenge. That's good because we have plenty of challenges out here and a lot of them are complex, right? We need innovation. We need innovators. We need these types of people and this type of skill so that we can think beyond the status quo. We can benefit from looking at things and how they've been done in the past, but that's not likely going to be able to solve what we have to face in the future. That's the dichotomy that we have. So problem solving and not being given the answers all the time and seeking out problems to challenge yourself is a skill also that we need to promote because we need these types of thinkers. This, of course, feeds into the innate ability to be curious all the time. It's one of our greatest human qualities, to be curious, to be ever seeking the why in things. We need to encourage this a lot more in our workplace, especially. Why do we stop learning in our workplace? Because we get too busy, because we think about smaller incremental things. We don't think about the big picture as much. We don't get time to do it. We don't stop to do it. But a little bit of curiosity can create a lot of ingenuity and innovation and new thinking and fresh thinking. And those are the types of mindsets that we need. The last one I want to suggest is this big one here, critical thinking. What is this? This is perhaps the toughest thing as a teacher to teach in my experience. But critical thinkers make better problem solvers, they make better creators, they make better strategists, managers, leaders, entrepreneurs. The critical thinking development is a really hard thing to explain to students. What is it, they ask? Is it being critical? No, it's not that at all. It's really thinking independently, asking why, again, coming back to curiosity. Asking why is that? Not to come up against it, but to just find out the legitimacy of it. It's good to be independently thoughtful. It's good to think about things from different dimensions. Why? Because it gives us the ability to also put ourselves in different people's shoes, to understand people. Maybe we don't agree with them. Maybe we don't condone what they do. Maybe we think entirely differently. But if we can put ourselves in those people's shoes, then we can create and continue with dialogue and conversation and negotiation. And that type of process would certainly solve a lot of the issues that we have today that are prevalent around the world. Critical thinking is also asking why continually. Critical thinking is harder and harder to procure because we are eternally attached to social media. Social media is a drug we all almost take part in. For the young people that I engage with every day, it's an absolute barrier to them thinking independently because they are consuming at such a rate. They are attached and they place so much need to their platforms that it's really difficult to get them to focus for any length of time. And that's why it's so difficult to get these other skills developed because they just don't have that attention span. Maybe some of this is resonating with you if you're a parent or if you're a teacher or in any sort of education capacity. It's really a trick to hold the attention of students for more than 5 minutes. And this is directly related to their attachment to social media. I have been trying to promote the idea that if you are not paying for the product, then you are the product, just trying to make them think how and what part they play in social media. Surprisingly and encouragingly, I've had some students who say they're not on hardly any social media. I mean, WhatsApp is like the only thing that they're on, which is great. Social media has a brilliant range of positive factors, but we know for sure it does interfere with learning and mindfulness and being independent and being independently creative and thinking about how to solve problems yourself, because they're too used to being at the receiving end of all this information and not questioning anything. We need a set of diverse styles of thinking. This is what we need in order to work our way through this complexity of the problems that we have. We need breakaway thinking. So again, these are my observations. You may agree or not agree with them, but I'm putting them out there for criticism and comment. In university, we need to rewire a lot of what we're doing so that we bring these skills into the curriculum and embed them and integrate them throughout the entire curriculum, not only within technical and knowledge-based units, but also specifically outside that, so that we give them the full spotlight. These things will accelerate the successfulness of young people joining the workforce. We need to support development in this area throughout our education systems. All of the engagement we have with industry, and we welcome more of it, tell us that these are the skills that they need. Please, could you just teach your students to communicate properly, to present properly, to work in a team, to come up with solutions to problems on their own, to have financial literacy. That doesn't come from learning or doing a major in finance. Financial literacy is simple things like being able to budget, not spend more money than you have. So these are skills that we also need to procure in our students. And I would suggest that if we also promote a growth mindset in them, that they'll never stop having this yearning for learning and be open to change and to growing within themselves and to being given lots of fantastic opportunities throughout different industries and career sets. These are all transferable skills. The key thing is that we need to be adaptable. We need to be able to be flexible and change. When things change around us that we have no control over, i.e. everything that's happened in the last 6 months or longer now, how are we going to use that as an opportunity? That's how we have to move forward. That's the only way to move forward. And we have to be good role models for students in order for them to be able to see how it works. So don't be afraid of being uncomfortable. My final thought here, before I sort of depart and open up maybe for some conversation, is that all of these skills actually are part of a bigger game plan. And I would say that global citizenship skills are also a part of this conversation. How we think of each other, our shared responsibility, how we take responsibility not just for what's outside our backyard, but for what goes on in other parts of the world, because geographical boundaries, of course, become irrelevant in many, many instances when we're talking about things that we take for granted. So shared morality and shared responsibility feed directly into the business environment, because these give us the basis for good business ethics, good corporate citizenship, taking responsibility for some of our environmental and societal problems, and using business as a force for good. And that's, I guess, why I'm in the business school and why I have an innate passion and interest in sustainability and how they mix together and how they can work together, along with trying to nurture the people that are going to be responsible for all this in our future, long after I'm not here. Those are the people we really need to focus on and make sure they've got the right skills and mindset. So thank you for listening to all of that. I hope some of it was interesting for you. I certainly would be interested in hearing from you. Manuja, do we have anything that we need to respond to, or do we just have like a silent audience that's just sat there very quietly and listened?
I think they've been silent just because they've been just raptured by what you've been sharing. But now
maybe it's not what they anticipated.
No, but it has been, and even for me, I guess it's great to just we know of, again, working with the university, we know of enterprise skills and we know what they are, but it's great to hear more contextual information about them as well, and from your experience how it's worked. Or as again, like I keep thinking of the Italian ballerina turned scientist, and that's just such an amazing example of, yeah, it's not what we think that we will learn at 17, 18, 19 years of age that defines what we'll achieve and do for the rest of our lives. So thank you,
Yeah.
Rohit. It's been such very insightful. But now is the perfect time for questions. I see a few questions actually that have come through. Thank you. Wonderful points of wisdom. Okay, so someone anonymously has asked, could you specify what kind of technical skills are needed for the future? Is it coding or that's it?
Yeah, so when I did some research about that, certainly technology is driving everything. Some of the prominent aspects were data science and analysis of business analytics. So, we generate an enormous amount of data every day, every minute. And since the Internet of Things, that has only exponentially grown. So the amount and the volume of data is easy enough to generate, of course, but we also need the skills in order to group it together. So algorithms and coding and those types of things. And they specialize again in all those different programs like and softwares like Python. And I'm not an IT-based literate person. So, but what I saw was Python and SQL and another thing called, I want to say Tesla, but it wasn't Tesla. I can direct you to some good information in that. But then moving on from that, we still need the ability to analyze what that data means. What value does it give us other than just being a bunch of numbers or binary codes? So the ability to efficiently process that data and connect it with a lot of different things, but also the ability to be cognizant of what it means and what it could mean and what value it holds for us. If you want a go-to place for some of those emerging technical skills, I can lead you to a couple of different sources. If you wanted to leave your details, I will just pull them up and I can, with pleasure, forward them to you so you can explore that yourself.
I think, yes, we can share that with, we have all the registrations from this session, so we can share it along with the recording as well, in case, I know there are a few people who joined us a little late, so that would be beneficial for everyone. I have another question. Would you be interested delivering sessions like this to a student body as well? I'm sure, and I think that's from Elise. Elise, I'm just going to leave an email address and we can connect over there and we can schedule something hopefully soon. We have a comment and question, which is, there is a thought process of developing critical skills, thinking skills in students from a younger age and not at university level.
Agreed. It needs to start much earlier.
That's also on someone else's follow-up question, is basically that they are looking for these proof of soft skills. How do they start from the school environment and not university level? So
yes. And there's like no end of information about how education systems are changing much earlier than at university. And I would suggest that that's absolutely the right thing to do. It depends, from what I observe, it really depends on where the student is coming from as to how open they are to learning these skills. They do have a lot of pressure to get their degree, and they don't necessarily think these are important. But I can tell you that the students that I've kept in touch with after they've graduated, they've come back and said, I realized why you were saying this, or I realized why we were doing this, because now that I'm in work environment, I recognize how much it's used. So again, workplace experience and any exposure we can give our students to be in the workplace and to see how it all happens is, I think, invaluable. in tandem with whilst they're doing their studies.
Great. I think there's a question which is, what are some of the methods to strengthen our critical thinking? Before you dive into that, which can be not even a day-long session, we did run, and we do run, so Mondays at Murdoch, like Keary mentioned, we run these weekly sessions and they're geared at developing different things. So we did run one, I think just about a couple of weeks ago, which was for critical thinking and research skills. And yeah, I don't think there's a 1 minute answer for it, but Keary, any
No.
tips to strengthen?
I would be interested in anybody else's approach. I think it has to be integrative. It's not one subject or one task or one unit or even the one degree. But it needs to be repetitive. I guess it's like any other of the skills that I spoke about. It's like a muscle that you need to strengthen, and you need to get used to using it and practice it often through that familiarity, and then seeing what it can produce or what else it brings you, what new thinking it can help you with. Then I guess the proof would be there in the pudding in terms of how they realize what it is. Because even in my own skills, it's very hard to explain. It's even very hard to demonstrate. And I teach across our MBA as well. And this is even very hard to explain at that level, not just at undergrad level. So again, it may be something that we have to open ourselves up to much earlier, as has been suggested, and continually practice. I don't have a silver bullet for how to do it at all. I would welcome any advice to make my teaching better in that area.
Yeah, and I think, I totally agree with the, question and think why, and that just needs to permeate through all aspects of it. So it's not just about one project or one task, or I think, again, personally and professionally, to grow as an individual, that sort of why am I doing this, or what's the reasoning behind it, that just needs to start right from the beginning, or much earlier than I think, now that we know that we do need it and how critical it is.
Yes.
I don't think I quite understand this question, which is there a correlation between these amazing skills and any profession a student would like to fulfill?
Oh, they're all correlated.
Yes.
Yeah. Everything that you'll ever want to do as a profession or a role or a career or an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you need all of these skills. So there's definitely mapping. They all map, not only to be successful in business or in your career, but to be successful in your own personal life. These are all good skills to practice. And we never, any of us, get them perfectly right. But yeah, some of the communication and presentation skills would lean themselves more towards perhaps sales roles, leadership roles, where you have to do a lot of communicating, creativity, critical thinking, those types of things. They stretch across any of the job advertisements that my students pick out that they want to get when they graduate. They could almost pick any of those skills and say how they're applicable. And if you look at job postings at the moment, you can easily pick out these skills across many different industries and job roles. I think if you're going to be matching some of the skill development with your own personality and characteristics of yourself, someone that's introverted still does need to be able to communicate effectively with others and work in a team and be able to collaborate. We don't just all exist in bubbles, even though we're even in isolated working remote situations now. We still need to figure out how to work with others. So your personality does come into it, but that can be something that you can leverage. If you can be very conscious about what those characteristics are, then you can scope out different roles that really promote those or really feed you and fuel you that way. So that's all part of career advisory and career experimentation, and just looking at what is out there, what suits you. because you want to spend most of your time in your career doing something that you like to do. You spend a lot of time at work for the rest of your life. It's really important to have a good proportion of enjoyment in that many hours that you spend at work. I'm sure you'd agree, Manuja.
Absolutely. And like you said, we'll probably change our careers 5 times. So different phases in our life, we'll get joy from different careers, I guess.
That's right. That's right.
One little discipline specific question is what medical majors are going to be needed for the future? I mean, with obviously healthcare being, especially right now, I think, of
Yes, quite prominent.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, very technical and in terms of use of technology. So a lot of diagnosis or early diagnosis will be by using AI and simulations. So the integration and interactions with technology will be there. So you won't necessarily be having to have a medical degree to do some of these early diagnosis or preventative type of medicines. Healthcare, I think the wellness area is definitely also a big growth area. Everything from dietitian and nutrition and looking at food systems and agriculture to what lands up in our grocery stores and how we can more effectively be healthier through what we put on the table and what we consume. But yeah, very, very interesting. I wish almost in some ways I had gone into science. I'm not sure I would have been smart enough for science, but I would love to be more involved in learning about food systems and science and biology.
Absolutely. I think just leading on from that, another question is future career options for our students, which may not even exist today, according to your research, or I guess what you covered even with the World Economic Forum and the sort of either skill sets or job fields, which may or may not be. So yeah, I mean, the carbon farmer, I think, was one that really stuck to me because it ties in with where I think the planet is heading to be sustainable.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yes. A lot of that I found revolved around environmental challenges that we have. Even in the growth of cities and urbanization and globalization, there were roles like the urban vertical farmer. And we have one of the largest vertical farms in the world, I think, up in Abu Dhabi with aero farms. So making good use of, water and not using land to have to build food security and those types of things. Another one was an avatar designer. Another one, which I didn't put up, was a teacher of an English teacher to foreign, no, let me get this straight. It was basically teaching robots English who had foreign languages.
Right.
So it was hard to get my head around at first, but teaching robots basically another language. So interesting, really interesting.
I mean, that's machine
Yeah,
learning
mind-blowing.
focused with linguistics.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And any books or resources that you can recommend we can read to prepare, guide our students? I'm guessing that someone, obviously, either a teacher or a counselor, so that they can guide their students towards future career options and skills.
Yeah, happy to be in touch with you if you want to reach out to me. I'll give you a whole list. It depends on, I guess, the age of your students and what they're doing. But there's so much out there. Honestly, it's really a growing area for business in terms of this skill development and career development. So again, if you want to reach out to me, I'll give you all the sources I regularly look at. I look at a balance of what's happening globally and also regionally, and then I use that and feed into my own, primary research with talking directly to employers and companies and people that are on the ground, and they know sort of what's happening now in their area. So I take all that in balance, but it's very wise to keep your eye on the horizon of what's happening globally, because you may think it's quite distant or not really affecting us, but increasingly it does. And things come quicker, cycles come quicker and affect us. So I think Dubai and the UAE is well placed on an international stage, and we have this fantastic accessibility geographically to not only access and attract a global workforce, but also we're known actually for having excellent emerging business skills in this region. I think the UAE is one of the top 5 deemed in emerging business skills, because I think also of the diversity of the things we're faced with here and the quick skills that we need to develop. So yeah, interestingly that we're in the right spot.
Great. Hub of innovation.
Yeah.
I think there's one particular question which is, can we have sessions about medical fields? So if you don't mind, I'll just answer that. So our home campus in Perth is, I think, easily world renowned for a lot of the research that they do in the, whether it's biomedicine, food research, nutrition, right now COVID. So we have our next few Mondays at Murdoch sessions planned out till pretty much the end of November, but we'd love to be able to, we'll reach out to our faculty and experts there. And if it's something that is of demand, and if there is a larger population that does require it, we have some excellent scientists and faculty and researchers that work with us at our home campus, who would be, I think, just brilliant to have and speak about.
Yeah.
I mean, medical itself is it's humongous. It's an ocean of knowledge, but something specific on that.
We have a very strong health sciences reputation at Murdoch University, and we do a lot of things from nursing right through to veterinary science. And as Manuja mentioned, we work a lot with governments and food security. In fact, Murdoch's working readily with the UAE government on a number of different food security and biotech projects. And they all cross the field of medicine or the health, I guess health sciences is a more accurate description. And again, that's broad, but that is definitely one of our pillars of study and research.
Yep. So I think we'll probably give this session a wrap with this. Please, thank you again for attending. But if you have any more comments, feedback, or suggestions, and if we close this webinar right now, you can find us on social. We'll post a few screenshots about this session as well, but do share your feedback, and we always try and make these sessions as relevant to you as possible. Like I mentioned, we'll share the screen recording, plus Keary can share some of the resources that she's mentioned with all of you. And I'd also just quickly like to mention, so for the next Mondays at Murdoch, we do have another session on innovation and a risk-taking approach in entrepreneurship. So I think it nicely leads on from this session as well. And that is being delivered by Salim Hassan, and it's a CEO's journey about how he's built and found his extremely successful organization called Privity here. And we will get the registration link for that as well. So watch out for the next session as well. But I think that's it from my end. Firstly, thank you so much, Keary. Again, it was just very informative, very insightful. And thank you to all our attendees. And thank you for the questions at the end. I think that's what makes...
Yeah, thank you for the questions. They're great.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.